I want to start with something I didn't say out loud for a very long time. I have been wanting to quit my job, and this wasn't because I was weak, not because I couldn't cope, and not because I didn't care enough. I've been thinking of quitting because my body was no longer negotiating with me, and my mind wasn't far behind. This wasn't tiredness, it wasn't a week of bad meetings. It wasn't a bad week or a rough season. This was the slow accumulation of strain, physical, emotional, and psychological, until functioning itself became an act of self betrayal. This isn't a dramatic story, and it's most certainly not advice, but it is a documentation of my journey as I navigate this season of burnout. Because burnout doesn't usually announce itself, it reveals itself in patterns, and most of us are never taught how to read them. The most obvious sign is when my body started to speak first. Before I knew I was burning out, my body already did. And this is something we often underestimate: how early the body begins to protest and how quickly we learn to override it. For me, it started with symptoms that felt explainable to a large extent: persistent headaches, a constant tightness in my neck and shoulders, like I was bracing for impact even when nothing was happening, digestive issues that appeared and disappeared without warning, heart palpitations in the middle of the night, sleep that looked adequate on paper but never felt restorative. And here's the question I didn't ask myself early enough: what does it mean when the body refuses to rest, even when rest is given? Because that's not fatigue, that's dysregulation. That's a nervous system that has learned to stay on high alert because it no longer feels safe to power down. Instead of listening, I negotiated. I told myself I just needed a break, a weekend, a holiday. But the symptoms didn't recede, they escalated. And escalation is communication, or so as I've now learned. And this is the part where the emotional erosion started. Emotionally, the shift was quieter and in some ways more disturbing. There was anxiety without a clear trigger, a low, persistent irritability that I carried into conversations I cared about, a sense of dread before work days that didn't match the actual task ahead of me. And then there was numbness, not sadness, not anger, just a complete flattening emotionally. Moments where I noticed I wasn't reacting to the things that once mattered deeply to me. From a counseling lens, this is important. Numbness isn't the absence of emotion, it's a protective response. It's what happens when the system decides feeling everything is no longer sustainable, and layered on top of all of this was guilt. Guilt for struggling, guilt for wanting out, guilt for questioning a job that looked stable and respectable from the outside. I am grateful for the job that I have. It pays the bills, it keeps a roof on top of my head, it keeps food on the table and pays for the bills. This job was literally what saved me when my whole life fell apart a few years ago. So then I asked myself the pivoting question: how often do we confuse gratitude with obligation? And at what cost? And despite the cost, can I keep going? Because after all, the job was what was keeping me afloat. And this is when I started to realize that cognitively, things began to unravel in ways that started to frighten me. My concentration was fragmented. Tasks that once felt straightforward now required enormous effort. I experienced memory lapses that made me question myself. Decision fatigue was so severe that even small choices felt overwhelming. And the internal dialogue became relentless. You're behind. You're failing. You should be coping better than this. This is where burnout becomes particularly cruel, because the mind, the very tool we rely on to function, becomes another source of threat. And when that happens, you're no longer living your life. You're managing symptoms. At least I was. And here's another question I started sitting with. If your mind has become a place of constant pressure, what does it mean to keep demanding more from it? And that's when the moment of clarity arrived. The moment I knew something had to change. And it wasn't dramatic. I was lying in bed at night, heart racing, muscles tense, thoughts spiraling, stomach unsettled, the usual routine that I had been feeling for months on end. And a very simple thought surfaced. This is not sustainable. It wasn't, I don't like this, or this is hard, but the realization that continuing like this will cost me my health. And that realization carried weight, because no job, no matter how meaningful, is worth the slow erosion of your nervous system, your sense of self, your capacity to feel alive. And at that point, leaving my job wasn't yet a plan. It was a line I could no longer cross. So you're probably wondering, why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because burnout is often misunderstood. It's not a failure of resilience. It's not a lack of gratitude. And it's not something that only happens to people who cannot cope. Burnout is what happens when adaptation goes on for too long without repair. When the cost of functioning exceeds the system's ability to recover. Leaving my job is not impulsive. It has not been an easy decision to grapple with, and it comes with a lot of fear, grief, and uncertainty. But I'm beginning to realize that it is necessary. This isn't about quitting, it's about recovery. It's about rebuilding and learning how to listen before the body is forced to scream. If you recognize yourself anywhere in this, I hope this gives you language to something that you may already be feeling. And if you choose to stay for the rest of this journey, I guess I'll be exploring what happens next, slowly, honestly, and without pretending there are simple answers. Because this chapter of my life is about learning to live aligned, live inspired, and keep moving forward, one step at a time.